Welcome. Special short episode, Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights. I had gotten a phone call from John Brogy a couple of days ago about the National. He's the executive director, I think, of the National Sports Collectors Convention, asking him what he should do, which is hard to figure, and more importantly, or just as importantly, what do we think that dealers and collectors will do with a scheduled National in Atlantic City this year? Late July. So it's looking doubtful, but it's up to him to make the announcement. But it got me thinking. I'd also recorded the episode that you may have just seen that was earlier today with Joe Davis of Got Baseball Cards outside Atlanta about the impact of COVID rules and the post-COVID world with respect to card shops. And I got to thinking about, well, what about card shows? Really enjoy going to shows. Card shop, you got people coming in, and in Joe's case, he probably knows a lot of them. Mike Fruitman, he knows a lot of his customers. Card shows, not necessarily. You got people coming, you don't know where they've been, and it might be problematic for dealers or for collectors trying to figure out, do they really want to go to the show? Do they need to go to the show? Would they rather just wait? So thanks, sponsors: Topps Panini, Upper Deck, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Huggins & Scott Auctions, and Heritage Auctions. I'm not going to a show that's in a venue if it requires an elevator to get there. I'm not sure I'm doing that, but most shows nowadays are not. Most shows have 6-foot tables. That doesn't sound too bad. Sounds like 6 feet of social distancing. If I were going to a show and I was contemplating what that's going to look like, I'd be thinking, well, if there's a 6-foot table, probably be if I was a promoter, I'd allow one person maximum behind each table. If somebody had 2 tables, there could be 2 people manning those. 3 tables, you'd have 3, but you'd have up to 1 person max working the table. And what about people buying, customers and collectors? I was going to say you could have 1 customer at each table, but I suppose if you were 6 feet apart, you could have somebody standing or sitting at the far right corner of the 6-foot table and somebody else at the far left corner, and they could be technically 6 feet apart. So I guess that'd be okay if they were that. But in principle, I'm just thinking as we get back to this new normal, the number of collectors in the room probably should not be more than the number of tables. I didn't say the number of dealers. There could be less dealers, but the number of tables that are laid out. And it may even be important to lay the tables out with a foot or 2 of separation, that they wouldn't be snug, and which means you can't get as many tables in the room. But again, if there's 50 tables, then 50 customers could be in the room at a time. And if there's more than that, you'd have a wait list. Actually, having a wait list would be a problem. It's probably the better problem in the beginning. In fact, what it might tell these promoters is the value of the show admission. Show admission fees, certainly in these early post-COVID shows, I don't think they'd have the guts to charge a lot more, but it may be that there's a situation where show fees should be higher. Rich Klein and I did a little commentary about that. The whole idea of the admission fee to the show to come look around, it's flipped now. Browsing perhaps now is to be discouraged at a card show. We may not want your customers to stay as long. You may want them to get in and out, and one way you could do that is by having a time-bound admission fees that it costs more the longer you stay, or you could perhaps take away the chairs that are in front of the tables. That would be to my consternation, because I like to sit down if I'm looking through some cards, but I wouldn't stay as long if there weren't any chairs. But if there are chairs, which there probably will be, those chairs could be wiped down antiseptically after I finish or before I sit down, or so kind of like in a gym. I wouldn't feel bad if my temperature was taken upon entry. And if I was 99 degrees or higher, somebody, they should go back home. And I think the promoter, I wouldn't have a problem if the promoter enforced that. It's pretty easy to take temperature. I would like it if all dealers were certainly wearing gloves and masks and perhaps even visors. If the promoter said you can't come in unless you, the collector, the customer, are wearing gloves and masks, I wouldn't think that was bad. I would think that would be protective. So if they wouldn't let me in without that, I wouldn't want to have to go home, though. It might be that they'd have some disposable gloves, which are very cheap. And masks, actually, being a sports fan, there's got to be a lot of opportunities to get logo and sports-oriented team and identity kinds of masks that would be fun. So there's actually a sales opportunity there. And then I thought of 3 kind of radical but unlikely draconian rules. One, which is enforced many times, is that all sales are final, no returns. In other words, but even worse than that could be to have a rule, if you touch it, you own it. In other words, you say, hey, let me look at that card, and you start touching it and then you put it back, and they say, no, you don't put it back. You touched it, you bought it. And lastly, the toughest rule of all, one cough, one sneeze, and you're out. You're kicked out. You're expelled immediately. One cough, one sneeze. We don't want you here. Finally, in the pre-show marketing, I think this is important. If you're a promoter or if you're a collector thinking about going to a show, I think it's important for promoters to communicate the measures they're taking. They could do that by video. They could do that by listing the things they're doing, much like restaurants do now, showing the steps they've taken, perhaps a short video of the room, even if it's before the setup. Just to send it out to your followers, your social media, to your website. But let collectors know that you care. Let dealers know that you care, that you as the promoter are going to, because otherwise, I don't know if the dealers are going to come, and there is no show if there are no dealers, but there's also no show if there are no collectors. So both collectors and dealers need to have a piece that, in this new world, they're not going to get sick going to a card show, enjoying the hobby that we love. So, be healthy, stay safe, and, looking forward to seeing some of you at a show nearby soon.